PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series X. It's time for good old-fashioned spec shootout. Welcome back, friends. It's a big day. We finally know the core specs of the PlayStation 5 and the core specs of the Xbox Series X, and we are going to walk and talk through them. I'm just going to throw them up on the screen so that you can look at them side by side. So on the PlayStation 5 side, we have an 8-core Zen 2 at 3.5 gigahertz variable frequency. On the Xbox Series X side, we have 3.8 gigahertz, 8 cores, Zen 2 as well. So basically the same sort of core chipset and die, slightly different frequencies. Microsoft is taking an approach where they're going to have fixed clock speeds. PlayStation is taking an approach where they will have variable frequencies, and that's going to be a big difference between these two. Is PlayStation has fixed frequencies and performance. PlayStation is allowing variable performance, which, well, depending on how the developer takes use of it, has different benefits and trade-offs. On the GPU side, Microsoft has 12 teraflops, 52 compute units at 1.825 gigahertz, and on the PlayStation side is 10.28 teraflops, 36 compute units at 2.23 gigahertz. So big difference here is obviously that Microsoft's Xbox Series X, as always has been rumored, is going to be more powerful in terms of raw performance. On the PlayStation side, it is at a higher frequency, or a clock speed, I should say, but overall power does go to the Microsoft camp. But it's going to be, there's so many things at play here. Don't get caught up in raw teraflop performance. Let's see, when it comes to memory, it's both going to be 16 gigabytes GDDR6, so effectively the same thing there. And on the IO throughput, it does look like Sony has a little bit of an edge here, because Microsoft is 4.8 gigabytes compressed, whereas Sony is at 5.5. Now, one of the big things that is not talked about explicitly here that is worth pointing out, both of these companies are allowing for additional storage, right? They're going to come with internal storage built in, but we all know that whether it's 1 terabyte or 50 terabytes, it's eventually going to fill up. Now, if you're in the Xbox Series X camp, you have two options. You have the external storage card that is basically the exact same storage drive as internal, and then you can just plug it into the back, and then you get that expanded storage, along with USB type storage, but that is only for older games. It will not work with the Xbox Series X games, only for legacy titles. Now, on the Sony side, they're doing things a little bit different. They do have their own custom solid state drive, but they're actually going to allow you to put in basically any type of drive and be able to use it with current generation games. Now, this is obviously different from Microsoft, but Sony is cautioning that there's some big differences here. First off, the drive in the PS5 is going to PCIe 4.0, and a lot of drives out now don't really support all the features that Sony's including. Sony is really pushing the boundaries on what is available in their storage drives. So you can go get a drive and plug it in, but Sony is not promising or guaranteeing that you will get the same level of performance quite yet. Now, they will eventually, at least based on the early information, be supporting, they will basically authenticate drives, or say, look, these drives will offer the right level of performance, and then certify those for that. But if you want to go grab a cheap M.2 drive, it does look like you will be able to do that with the console. So that will actually benefit the user, because right now we don't know how much Microsoft storage drive is going to cost. I'm always a big fan of flexibility, and obviously Sony's giving a little bit more tinkering, a little bit more flexibility here at this time. Both consoles are going to support RDNA 2, and so that is going to be big things talking about ray tracing, talking about that is going to be the talk. Both devices will have a 4K UHD Blu-ray drive. And so there you go, guys. You can look at the raw specs side by side, and it's pretty clear that Microsoft has the more powerful console, but that is not unprecedented. We've been hearing that for a long time, and that just kind of, it fits the narrative. Both have roughly, well, they do have the same amount of RAM, which is going to be key, and memory bandwidth is it's close. And so there's not a ton of big difference here, other than realistically the GPU. It looks like, from an off the cuff, we just got this information just a few minutes ago. So one thing to keep in mind, though, is Microsoft might have the more powerful console, but power comes at a price. Keep in mind that Microsoft's console is more than likely, unless Microsoft is willing to take a hit on it, is going to cost more than the PlayStation 5. You can look at what they're putting into the console, and it's pretty easy to tell that the Xbox Series X is going to cost more money than what Sony is currently offering. Now, obviously, hardware specs are not the entire thing. There's things like the OS. How well does if you can have the best specs in the world, but if the OS is garbage or doesn't work or it's buggy or if the console overheats or if controllers disconnect, it doesn't matter how good your powerful your console is. Likewise, if you don't have great games, if the games aren't there, it doesn't matter how powerful your console is. We both know the story behind the titles, first-party titles and exclusives on the PlayStation and Microsoft. So Microsoft bought a whole bunch of studios, investing heavily into first-person titles. We're still waiting for all of that to materialize. Sony has a rich history of having exclusives and having very good titles on their side. What we're going to get out of this is really good 4K gaming experiences on both consoles. Both consoles are going to give quality experiences for console gamers. It should be an exciting time. We're just really starting to get the specs. Both companies released specs this week. We're still waiting to see how things play out in the real world. Got to keep in mind, these are all controlled environments. This is best case scenario is that you're getting 10.28 T-flops or 12 T-flops. These are best case scenarios. And so it's going to all be coming down to how the developers utilize these feature sets, utilize the assets that Microsoft provides, how easy these companies make it easy, how easy these companies make it to develop for these platforms is going to be crucial. So there you go, guys. There is a first quick look at the PlayStation 5 versus Xbox Series X raw spec performance. We will have a lot more on this channel. Hit subscribe and we'll keep you always updated.